Welcome to another TEV Podcast. This is episode 6, and we have some good content for you guys today. And we hope you stay tuned to the very end, because some of the things that we're going to be talking about in this particular episode is going to touch on an array of topics. But before we go any further in this conversation for today, we want to thank all the mothers on this past Mother's Day weekend. And I hope you treated your mother out to something nice. I know Chris always comes through with his mother. And
I was out there on the grill. Told Calvin, every chicken in the 100-mile radius should be running, because I did my thing out there with the chicken on the grill.
Then Chris tries to be a chef himself, and he might come out with a cookbook one day. I'm not going to endorse it. I'm just going to put that out there. But
Cooking with TEV. Content.
Maybe one day. But Chris, without further ado, could you introduce the word for the day?
So our word of the day is maudlin, and it means to express sadness or sentimentality in an exaggerated way. So I think, some of the things that we'll talk about in this episode will exaggerate our emotions to, feed into some of the concepts that we're talking about, and our passion will show. Some of you may see it as a maudlin expression, but it's just our true nature. So you'll see some of that maudlin in today's episode.
And some of you guys may be in a state of maudlin, if that's used correctly.
No, it's not used correctly. That's okay.
Nah, we'll let it slide, because it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough. But anyway, but in this topic, there's some extremes, and then there's some nuance. But without further ado, we must talk about this situation with Ja. It's a Ja world.
The Jodcast is what we have right now. So, Ja Morant, back in the news cycle again, just recently was suspended by the Grizzlies, his NBA team, for flashing a gun. Again, a second incident, allegedly, to where he has flashed a gun while listening to NBA music, NBA Youngboy on Instagram Live. So this seems to be a recurring theme for him, you would say, right?
Yeah, I feel like in the first incident, the correlation, NBA Youngboy, I guess he's a parent fan of NBA Youngboy. So I guess, when the next NBA Youngboy song drops, or the next album, I guess you could be on the look for an alleged Ja Morant situation.
Yeah, I mean, Ja's timeline it's been very, very busy, I guess you would say, in this past couple of months. Back in 2022, he allegedly threatened security at a Memphis mall due to an incident that happened with his mother. He also allegedly was in a vehicle that pointed a laser that was allegedly a gun target to a Pacers team bus. Again, the two incidences with the guns allegedly, and he's kind of been in a very negative light for this past couple of months.
Yeah, not only the past couple of months, but just this year. I know he has 3 alleged forms of activity and media presence, with this one being the most recent, and the third account, and then 2 prior in 2022. So he's been very prevalent in the media, and you have to ask yourself, how many strikes? This is not baseball, this is life. And there's a lot of grace being extended to Ja Morant. And before we go any further, I am a huge Ja Morant fan. He's from the native state of South Carolina. We're from South Carolina. This is our basis.
803 stand up.
Yeah, 803. Shout out Charlemagne. For the ones that mess with Charlemagne, I'm neutral. I'm neutral, but he's a South Carolina native as well. So we have some respect, some regards for him. But that's our guy. Ja, he's Team South Carolina. I feel like he still represents South Carolina well to some extent with this recent, alleged accounts, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So despite all that, I'm still rooting for him. I still want the best for Ja
Definitely.
and his family, because this is bigger than Ja, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So for good reason. But let's go ahead and get into this content, and if you will. So we have the first order of business. And Chris, could you allude to that?
Yeah, with all the moving parts that are in these multiple incidences, you have Ja himself, you have his friends and family, you have the public, obviously, and the organizations, the NBA and the Memphis Grizzlies, all play a part to, I guess, be complicit in these alleged accounts and incidences. We want to kind of question, who's to blame here for all, the recurrence of things of this nature that have been in Ja's life in this past year, and why is there no accountability within all of these parties? So I think, a good place to start is, who's to blame?
So before we dive into who's to blame, let's first talk about the actors at play in this whole situation in regards to anybody that is in proximity to Ja Morant and his career and his future.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, the number one actor is Ja himself. 2, family. 3, friends. And then some will argue that the Memphis Grizzlies, obviously, and then just the NBA organization. And then you could also maybe add endorsements. That's more outside and things of that nature. So those are the people at play and organizations at play with Ja's future and his livelihood. So Ja Morant is 23 years of age.
Yeah, same relative age as us.
Yes.
And again, like, being from the same place that we are kind of privy to, I guess, the lifestyle, the societal implications of what it means to be from South Carolina. So for Ja to be in the position that he's in at such a young age, and reaching the highest level of success within his field, you have to understand that he has a lot of stimuli, a lot on his plate right now, and it's easy for I guess a young man to be distracted in that sense, from what we could believe his goals are, potential to be. So I think that definitely needs to be taken into account, his age and where he is in his life right now.
Now, a lot of people will make the argument, because when we have to set the tone here in regards to the language that is being used in the NBA when it comes to players of his age. So a lot of players, a lot of people in the NBA would view him as a young man.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but also, we know that the age of 18 is technically, in America at least, is when you become a man. Because you're allowed to do so much. You open to, I think, buy cigarettes and all that type stuff. You could go into the military. You can do whatever you want, essentially.
Legally.
Yeah, legally.
Mm-hmm.
But in the NBA, it's you're a rook. You the rookie. You still in that phase of proving yourself. And that's where Ja is, except
I think it's different when you're like a superstar like that.
Yeah.
You kind of lose the necessity to answer to somebody, especially when you're that young and you're that impactful on your team and their success. They kind of have to answer to you a little bit.
Yeah.
Cater to you.
Yeah, I feel like he does have a lot of responsibility to maintain and uphold. And unfortunately, when you're as good as he is, you become like a hero.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do no wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And for some fans, Ja can't do no wrong. Like, even with this, he can't do no wrong. But from a quite literal standpoint, he can't do wrong because of things like this, the media is going to come out and obviously attack it, whether if he was in the right or wrong. So it's a dicey territory. You have to be careful when you're in a position like Ja Morant, because you realize that this affects everything. This affects your current and relative livelihood. I was listening to Undisputed with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless, and they was talking to this issue about the Ja, toy gun situation.
Mm-hmm.
And Shannon Sharp got a little heated, and he was speaking to some things that they have spoken to before, and he was just emphasizing the seriousness that he should carry. But at the same token, I feel like he has to recognize, and I think he knows this. I think he understands how great he is and how great he can be. But I think, as we talked before, that, and something that Shannon Sharp was talking to in Undisputed was, if you will, following the blueprint in a sense. So as a 23-year-old man, I feel like he has the cognitive ability to make that decision. To make a decision to whether I want to continue to live this lifestyle publicly, which, I mean, me personally, I don't care what he does in his personal life. But publicly, he has to realize that he can't be that same Ja. And when I'm talking about the blueprint, I'm talking to the blueprints of Michael Jordan's, the Steph Curry's, the LeBron James, the whoever, the Magic Johnsons, if you will. Like, those guys have laid out a foundation and a blueprint. Those guys are very reserved. They're very laid back in how they protect their families. They don't, I think LeBron has a wife that is very respectful. I would say she dresses modestly, all those type things. And
certain things they just wouldn't entertain.
Yes.
And I guess what you're saying, that it sounds like you're placing a little bit of blame on Ja, or a large majority of the blame on Ja.
Yeah, there is blame on Ja, but then you think about, his father, T. Morant. Mm-hmm. And by the way, these are good people. Fun fact, I did play on the South Carolina Hornets, not on the same team as Ja, but I would recall him being in the practices, and his father, I remember having conversations with T. Morant. Good dude, awesome dude to talk to. He's everything that he is on camera, and he's the same way off camera. But the things that are being revealed throughout all these accounts, alleged accounts of violent, semi or all fully violent activities, it makes you wonder, it makes you question, what is his father is saying behind closed doors? Is his father being a voice of reason? And based on, and someone can assume, rightfully so, that maybe Mr. T. Morant is not saying the things that a father needs to say in this situation. And every time I watch First Take and hear Stephen A. talk, or I hear Shannon Sharp talk, or I hear Skip talk,
mm-hmm.
It's always from that standpoint. They always make it known, they always set aside some time to talk directly to T. Morant about Ja Morant's actions. So you want to talk about blame? I feel like what Ja has been able to access in his life, not a lot of people, just being real, not a lot of people are in his situation. I played basketball with hopes to go to that level.
Mm-hmm.
It ends at some point for everybody. But for what Ja has been able to do, he's in a very, awesome spot that is envied by a lot of people. And a lot of people like myself are cheering for him because of that reason alone. So his friends, his family, those are his foundation. That's the foundation. And if they're not protecting the diamond, if you will, if they're not protecting that, then that could get robbed. And we don't want to see that for Ja nor his family.
I agree. But I would say, I have a different point of view.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
That Ja Morant, I'm on your side, buddy.
Let's see what's going on.
Yeah, I mean,
this is the Ja Morant podcast.
It's the Ja cast. It's the Ja cast, and I'm Team Ja right now.
I understand.
I agree with all that you said. There's again a lot of parties involved, a lot of factors at play, but I think the biggest one needs to be the league and the organization. Obviously, you take a player like Ja Morant, high in the draft, cornerstone of the franchise. You invest in a player like that, not just in skill and talent, but in livelihood and growth and personhood outside of basketball, right? I think the lack of urgency of intervention, I guess, within letting these accounts kind of like reoccur in this past, couple of months. There's no urgency from the league or from the Grizzlies to address these things, and I call it like instead of a shut up and dribble, it's like a show up and dribble. Like, we gotta play, we gotta win, we gotta, in this performance based league, your problems can wait. And I think that's the biggest detriment to Ja Morant at this point is the people who are, again, the friends and family should hold him accountable, but they have their own, I won't say agendas, but they benefit from Ja Morant doing what he wants to do, staying in his good graces, quote unquote, if that were the case. But the league, the Grizzlies, they, as again, investing in a player like that, they need to at least try their best to ensure that he's on the right track. Within the bounds, quote unquote, the mold. What did you describe the way that Jordan and LeBron kind of
just the blueprint.
The blueprint, yeah, being within the blueprint of what it means to be a face of the league, future superstar type of player. So I think when you see the organization, the Grizzlies, not, I guess, reprimanding him, kind of, I don't want to say encouraging his actions, but again, not sitting him down for like the rest of the season, the league suspending him for a short period of time. And, I even think back to when Gilbert Arenas threatened one of his teammates with a firearm. He got suspended for 50 games.
Yeah.
Ja Morant's suspension was very short. He was allowed to come back at the end of the season. So, you see, I guess, the extremes that were taken previously aren't being taken now. And again, the league, the Grizzlies, they benefit from Ja Morant being on the court regardless of his issues, problems, allegedly. So I think that is the biggest place to start. Ja Morant is doing wrong, but he's being allowed to do wrong by the people who should not allow him to do wrong.
And that's a very good point. And yeah, the organization, the Memphis organization, the NBA, they do have a part to play in this. And I feel like, now, it's not to say that they haven't done anything to chastise Ja Morant, if you will. They have, but some can argue that they should have done more. But the question is the punishment is it warranted, for what he has done? He hasn't killed anybody, so in all these arguments are surrounding, guns and things of that nature. And you can talk about the 2A amendment and how that is relative to Tennessee, which is open carry. So, but once again, Ja Morant being who he is, he's not, and because of the laws of the privately run organization that the NBA is, I believe, I'm not sure on this, but allegedly they have laws or confinements or guidelines saying that NBA players shouldn't have guns or something of that nature. Basically putting a stipulation on what they can't do as faces and representatives of the organization. So obviously there's a clear statement that the NBA does not support gun violence and just guns in general. So, but Ja Morant, the citizen, he's, I guess, exercising his right in the state of Tennessee to, I guess, flaunt whatever he has. And also to note that this wasn't his Instagram live. This was his friend's. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't Ja going out his way to...
I wouldn't say that. I think his friend always was recording Ja, and Ja, I guess, took it upon himself in the video to allegedly lift the gun within the frame. His friend, upon seeing that, quickly put the phone down. So I think,
as he should.
The people around him, I guess, are attempting to acknowledge what Ja is not acknowledging. But yeah, I don't know why it's not clicking for Ja either. I'm Team Ja still, but
I am as well.
Something's not clicking. But I think it's interesting when you talk about the league, and I think of I guess what I would deem maudlin expectations that were placed on Kyrie whenever he got in the debacle concerning the anti-Semitic movie, and how there was such a outlined measure that Kyrie had to take to get back into good graces, and how we're not seeing that with Ja, which I guess something that a lot of people, whether right or wrong, would deem a lot more serious and urgent when it comes to actually impacting lives. I don't want to be anti-Semitic, but I think guns and the NBA being such an impactful medium when it comes to youth and kids, and especially like a young superstar like Ja, a lot of children look up to them, idolize them. Again, there's a blueprint that these superstars usually follow, and being out of that blueprint and kind of on a, I guess what one could deem a more negative life path, that can be very detrimental potentially to a large majority of, that's such a big platform is my point. So you would hope that, the NBA would kind of address it in a similar manner. I think that's kind of a bare minimum. That's like a baseline that they set with that Kyrie situation. And to see that not be followed through here makes me question intention heavy when it comes to the organization. Even I think of, Nike as well. Nike dropped Kyrie for the situation that he was in. Yet Ja Morant has stayed. He's still signed to Nike, despite these two incidences. So it's just, it's weird to think about the actors that are at stake and the decisions being made based on those actors at stake.
I don't want to really speak too much to the anti-Semitic things that Kyrie
not to
pushing for,
just as a baseline of how the NBA is taking action on certain things. I don't mean to rile up anyone concerning anti-Semitism. So to that point with Kyrie's situation,
I think that was, despite what Kyrie believes in all that stuff, it's a question of freedom of speech. And I guess referring back to episode 5, he has the right to say certain things. However, people are going to take offense to things. And I said that this current generation is very sensitive and all that type stuff.
It's a little territory.
Yeah, cancelable territory. But regardless of that, I feel like maybe Kyrie Irving was dismissed in his posting, and I don't think he even really said anything per se. He just posted it.
He just posted it.
The video, the Amazon Prime video, whatever. But regardless of how that transpired, they treated Kyrie very harshly for something of conversation and of thought and of maybe it could have some historical truths. Allegedly it could have some historical truths, and maybe Kyrie could be right on some things, or whatever his beliefs were, but I feel like he was treated very harshly, and then also he had other things compiled against him in regards to the getting the bang bang, getting, during the pandemic, not, I feel like people didn't allow him grace to nor time nor the space to. He said he wanted to,
I guess
take time.
Yeah, it could be. It could be said that he made himself sort of a target, I guess, throughout this past couple of years.
Yes,
to the NBA at least.
And so, in comparison and in correlation to Ja's situation, there have been events that have compiled against Ja Morant in this situation. However, with Kyrie's situation, there was an expectation and almost a demand, I guess, to your point, that that Kyrie has to do this. And I felt like that was unfair in a sense, in regards to his case and why they wanted him to donate money, to apologize, and so forth, and the list goes on. Some people like Stephen A. who just wanted him to retire. Mm-hmm. And once again, there's that attack of someone's livelihood, because humans are humans. People think, people are free to think, and even if they're wrong, that's okay. And that's all I want people to acknowledge. Even when people are wrong, that's okay. Now with this, that's in regards to Kyrie Irving's standpoint, his situation. Well, with Ja's, all the alleged accounts, I feel like in that first account with the first gun incident, he did all the right steps. I don't know who his PR person was, but I feel like that was something he did to appease the people that was going to come out and say, why he's doing this. We have to have an answer. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Ja quickly gave an answer that was nice and very vague, if you will, mm-hmm. to resolve that immediate response from the media. So that was that, in which I think kind of lessened people's urge to demand more of him. If that makes sense, because in Kyrie's situation, there was a period, and I think for all America during the pandemic, people really wanted to know what was going on. Should I get this? Should I get that? Is this, gonna turn into a mutation? Whatever the case may be. So it was a lot to think about, and it was new territory for everyone to digest and to respond to. So I allowed grace and space for that, because everyone was discombobulated in a sense. Even the government itself didn't know. In present day, we no longer have to get the bang bang. Mm-hmm. Then you had to get the bang bang. So it's you could see the transition and all that. And at that time, Kyrie didn't really give an immediate answer. And our society today is so microwavable. We want it instant. We want it fast. We want you to make a decision now, instead of people actually being able to process intelligently, which everyone's brains are capable of doing, to process things, and it's the sad reality. Some people process things a little bit slower than others, but it's still a process, and you have to respect that. But credit to Ja, he did come out and do. I will say he did the right thing, but I would say it was a very strategic move. And I think Shannon, when I was watching Shannon today, he was basically saying, during his counseling, they basically say he didn't learn anything, allegedly. I'm not saying that. That was Shannon said based on Ja's newfound alleged actions. So that's something to consider, something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a dicey topic. I think the concept of grace and space, when it comes to, I guess, the culture, Black culture, when it comes to, these young athletes and the intersection between their platforms and the things they engage with, like music, or just every aspect of their existence is on display. Should there be grace given to, a Ja Morant figure due to, again, he's a young Black man in America. He's kind of reached his achievement that he's been striving for his whole life. He's been rewarded for that graciously with a large sum of money, a large platform, a large following. Some would say that, Ja Morant is enjoying his life right now. That may look detrimental to some people, some, basketball organizations, some basketball fans, but in a crux of just personhood, Ja, as detrimental as it seems, may be just happy as can be. Should we extend grace to Ja Morant because of that? That his goals may not align with the public's expectation or the organization's expectation of him. And if that is the case, is Ja wrong? Is that why action isn't being taken by some of the organizational, powers that be? There's a lot of, I guess, gray area in what does Ja want as a person, as a player. And I assume that has a fair bit to do with how he's responded to this, to these incidences and his, seeking help, I guess you would say.
So you bring up something about the organization doing something about this, and then also as we brought up Kyrie as an example, he talked about the organization, imparting some things for some ultimatums for Kyrie, if you will, to follow, and I guess you're saying that the league has not given Ja any ultimatums to follow, any guidelines to follow. And my question would be, what would be those guidelines for Ja to follow at this point? Would it be or just punishments, if you will, for Ja, that the NBA, from your standpoint, should impose on Ja for this?
Yeah, I would say I think that's the issue. They have not chosen to be strict or harsh. They've kind of been playing the fence. Like, even the fact that the first incident was he was suspended by the NBA, the organization, and this incident he was suspended by the Grizzlies. There's no uniformity in that. The fact that he was able to come back from his original suspension, that doesn't seem like the most effective way. Like, how can you learn in such a short period of time? I'm not saying you can't, but again, if you saw that as such a big issue, then you want to address it completely and fully and ensure that that was addressed. That didn't seem like the case. And again, you think of the timing of when all this kind of transpired. There's a playoff push, kind of highest, desire to have your best player on the court. I don't think you can be, or I don't think you should be, as an organization, focused on performance when if you see the livelihood of your star player and the longevity within that not being sustainable, then you should address that first and completely. So I think just because there's been such a wishy-washy stance from the organizations, that's where I take problem with. I think if they do view it as a serious issue, as the public seems to view it as, then they would suspend Ja Morant and make some sort of guidelines, as they did with Kyrie, to ensure that he kind of understands the implications of his actions, goes through the proper channels to get help, so he can come back and be, I guess, more focused on the game as they want him to be. But if they don't view it as such an urgent problem, then they should stop acting like they do and just let him do what he does. That's my point.
Gotcha. Now I kind of want to segue, if you will, back to our first question. Who's to blame? Now, I have an argument that is...
I'm ready.
That is more so about the culture of Black America, if you will, and the things that we entertain as a collective, and not only as a collective in the Black community, but just what is tolerated, what is acceptable, what is like the stereotype or the norm, if you will, for each ethnicity, each race in America to follow suit. Like, for example, it would be very weird, not weird, but untraditional, unorthodox if I seen a Black guy, listen to the Luke Combs or something like that and playing it loud in their stereo and on their stereo in the car, versus me seeing another Black person or that same Black person in the car, with the bass booming and listen to some rap. Right.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of talk to that a little bit in regards to this whole situation with Ja, in a sense. As I brought up earlier, he has an infatuation, allegedly, with NBA YoungBoy in these alleged accounts. NBA YoungBoy playing in the background. In the last one, I believe it was 1.5.
That's the name of the song.
Yes. And then in the previous account, it was
bring them out.
Bring them out. Now I saw some relevance to this. So I'm a guy, when I listen to music, I like to listen to the lyrics for obvious reasons, because I care about what is being played between my brain, which enters through my ear canals. And I feel like especially when you put yourself in an environment, or you choose to put yourself in certain environments, and yes, I think listening to music, that's an environment that you place yourself into, at your discretion. So, and I feel like when you do that, you subconsciously adapt to what you're listening to, what is customary to be said, what is customary to be to what how to act. And I think those things are, you consciously think about it because you're playing the song, then you subconsciously adapt to it to normalize it. Now, NBA YoungBoy by no means is a saint or anything of that nature.
Allegedly.
But you have to question, some of the things that we're listening to as a community, as a collective, is it beneficial for your livelihood, for your life, for the people around you? I understand that it's different when you're listening to the music and just trying to have a good time. But over time, when that compiles, you listening over and over, and effing this up, effing this girl, are shooting this up, gaining my respect, all that type of stuff. Hearing that redundantly over and over and over again, you have to wonder, what are the implications? And then when I look at society from a black person's standpoint, it's like, why is this happening? Then I go look at the lyrics, and I'm like, oh, I see why, because we manifested it. You see what I'm saying? It's like, so I have nothing, for the people that listen to NBA YoungBoy, do you listen to whatever you got to listen to? However, think about, I would challenge you to bet some things that you listen to, and maybe do like a lyric analysis and see if the things that you're listening to, does it line up with your life? And for Ja, for someone like Ja, maybe you want to listen to something that prepares your mind for where you are, for where you want to go, for the things that are reality in your life now. Because some of the things that I don't know Ja's upbringing per se, like, was he really banging like that? A lot of people saying that he's not. And, I think somebody brought up something about talking about he had a polo and some pants and some Sperry's with some glasses on.
He did. Family photo too.
Yeah, so right. And I know that a picture can say 1,000 words, but a picture doesn't tell everything, right? Mm-hmm. So I do understand that aspect of it, but try to align your life with things that are relevant to your life, and I feel like you can vicariously try to live, in this example, through the music. And I would challenge you to go look at those lyrics for 1.5, and the other song was Broken.
Bring them out.
Mm-hmm. And really read it and dissect it, and you will see that, is this life conducive? Like, for example, that song doesn't teach you how to, start a business. A lot of you want to be entrepreneurs and whatnot and stuff like that, but that song doesn't teach you how to do that. It doesn't teach you how to, do anything of value. Nothing of value. And some of the things that were in that song kind of played out for Ja.
I can breathe now. I think it's difficult when you talk about the relation of the music to the lifestyle, especially when it comes to a culture standpoint. Just as there are the Ja Morants who we may question if their lifestyle kind of matches up to the songs that they listen to, and at least the lifestyle that they portray. A lot of that music sells because there are people who relate to that. There's a certain authenticity, I guess, with music like that people relate to, especially if they have been through similar experiences. And again, being from places like Sumter, South Carolina, as Ja Morant is, you'd assume that there are a fair amount of people who kind of relate to stuff that YoungBoy says. Not that it is beneficial or uplifting to the community, but there are bad things about the culture that we have to acknowledge and we have to understand will most likely always be there, hard truth. But they're the good, bad, and the ugly of the culture. I don't know if asking a 23-year-old young man to be knowledgeable of, I need to exclude this bad part of the culture and project this good image, that's a lot to ask somebody in Ja's position, I believe. And there's, again, people with quote unquote less on their plate who struggle with that as well. So I think that's a big ask. I do think it is the correct way. But yeah, that is a lot to ask a young man in that position. That's a lot to think about, even as somebody who, I guess, spends a lot of time thinking about something like that. It's still difficult for me to ponder. And, how do we go about changing it? How do we, seek to kind of slice out some of that bad and ugly of the culture? We've been trying to do that for years, of course. So I think it's a very large topic with a lot of conceptual ideas that haven't even been put into work yet that will solve that issue.
Yeah, and I do understand that a lot of people can relate to it, and I think Stephen A. was talking to this as well about. Yeah, I think Stephen A. is from New York. Like he grew up in the Bronx area or something like that, and he was talking about having people there that kind of was like his big brothers in a sense, and he had people in his life that kept him on the right ropes. That didn't let him go too far, and if he did, they probably brought the rope, and drew him back in. And a lot of people that are in those situations are they live in communities where it is like that. I can see how that's hard to I guess get a different view. But my question is, once you come to a realization that there's something better out there for your life, why wouldn't you want to chase that? And that's my question. Like Ja is in a situation that a lot of people aspire to be in, and I feel like, and maybe there's just maybe it takes some time to acknowledge, wow, I'm truly blessed right now. I'm in a situation where I like the trajectory of my family is not the same, and it will never be the same, unless you do something that put everything you work for in jeopardy.
Well, yeah, I think it's very weird. And when we talk about toxicity within culture, I think the concept of separating yourself from, I guess, the perceived negatives of culture, like gang culture and, I don't know, like rap, hip hop, some of the, I guess, what would be deemed more grimy aspects of the culture. So you think of somebody like Michael Jordan, who I guess a lot of black people obviously revere for his, basketball game, but as a businessman, as a person, kind of excommunicated, and neither does he kind of, I guess, attempt to associate with black culture. In a sense, I think of people like O.J. Simpson as well, who kind of, to that point, reached a level of success and quote unquote forgot, or like just focused on success more than being connected. And how, the black community at large could be seen as, if you're not, with us, if you're not engaging with what we engage with, if you're not listening to the music that we listen to, then, you're kind of excommunicated. And I think that's a negative aspect of culture. Not saying that Ja is just trying to be culturally relevant, but, yeah, I think it's, again, difficult to ask these young individuals who have, accumulated success very quickly, so quickly, to disassociate from, what they may have perceived reality as in their early adolescence to now. That's a big ask, to just leave that alone. And when you do that, you can be perceived as something that you don't probably want to be perceived as.
But even to that point, like, I think that I understand like the feeling like an outcast in a sense, if you will, like if you do something different from the rest of the black community or something that's unorthodox or not normal, something that's deviant in behavior, like, bro, why you wear a cowboy hat or some cowboy boots or something like that, you're not one of us. I get that. However, and not comparing Ja's newfound success to cowboy boots, but it doesn't matter. Like in the next 40, 50 years, we're going to look back and be like, Ja Morant was an NBA star and possibly an NBA legend who has gone on to win several championships throughout his career, right? Nobody's going to really talk about, they might bring up he's from South Carolina, but after that, no one's going to care about what he listened to. They might talk about the gun stuff, but other than that, no one's going to care about how he was so ingrained with the culture in a sense, because what has happened with all NBA stars, Kobe, for example, he transcended the black culture in a sense. Like he didn't like negate or anything, but he's favored and liked and loved by the world. Like China loves this dude crazy. They buy his shoes. They'll do anything for Kobe. You know, when Kobe passed, everybody, I remember that day.
I think that's a different scenario.
I mean, but what I'm saying is, but you get the point. It's like what is your goal? What is your vision for your life? And for someone like in Ja's position, how do you want your day-to-day look? Who do you want to be in your life? I know how harsh this may come off, but you got to get serious about where you are in your life. You have to realize that you can dictate who you want to be in your life, what you want to entertain in your life, but it comes at a cost. Everything that you keep in your life comes at a cost, and it comes with benefits. Now, if he wants to bear that price every day by keeping some of his friends, by allowing his family to have too much access or too much input, that comes at a cost. And if he's willing to pay that bill every day, do you?
And I think that's, I guess, from what I perceive, he is willing to pay that bill every day, as you say. I think a lot of the, I guess, pressure is coming from the public. Again, I believe, I guess, perceived notions of what he desires or what he wants out of life, what he believes to be important, are being placed on him when his actions could be perceived as him, totally different from that. So I think that's the disconnect there. And I guess, time will tell what Ja's focus is. Hopefully it is towards, having a more sustainable image and lifestyle. So definitely rooting for Ja Morant.
Yes, much success, love, and all that. And Ja has done so much in the league at a young age, yes, but he has to think about the future, and it's going to take a lot of sacrifice if he wants to be great, if he wants to, because he's on the trajectory of that. He's you could argue that he's the face of the league, or he's going to be in the near future the face of the league, and he's going to be the reason why people are tuning in to watch NBA. He's going to be the reason why, someone might buy tickets, like spend their last dollar to see him play in the game. And that's a lot. And yes, that's a lot of pressure. But if you want to maintain the lifestyle that you have, and you want to keep your family, you want to talk about like generational wealth and all this type of stuff. And here's the weird thing, back to my point about the music and all that type of stuff. There's always an undertone and a message of getting money and all this type of stuff. And then to even that, I'll be like, have money to do what? It's a tool to, gain access to something. So people want to be braggadocious about having all the money and fame and all that stuff. But if you're in a position to do that, and you can make the biggest chess move in your life to put every bad thing in checkmate, I understand he has a lot to consider, but he can really change the history of his family, himself, and his legacy, and all this type of stuff, and still be an example for the community, and transcend, if you will, like Kobe, Mike, LeBron, and players like that, Magic. So
throwing Magic in there for some reason.
Oh, I throw Magic in there for good reason, man. I've gained respect for Magic knowing that he came in the league, especially after that documentary series.
Yeah, you really like that HBO series, ain't it?
But knowing that he came out and won a championship that first year as a rookie, that's unmatched.
On like below the roster, but that's beside the point.
It doesn't matter, you know. Even with the argument with LeBron, people always say that it's that it should be phenomenal. It should be a phenomenal season, but it's always a risk. It's always a leap of faith putting teams together. You could argue that you know, for example, the Lakers with Russell Westbrook, it didn't really pan out like they thought. So that just goes to show that nothing is ever, or some things will never go as planned, essentially. So,
but you know, back to I guess the accountability aspect. Just as Ja Morant has decisions to make, so, you know, some thoughts to have about his actions and what his future looks like, I believe the league, the organization, needs to stance itself better moving forward, so there aren't instances like this where bad behavior, as they may see it, is reinforced and I guess rewarded or allowed to exist. You know, I think a uniform policy concerning detrimental social media, you know, incidences should be implemented within the league, just to, you know, kind of negate some of these negative reputation aspects for both the players and the league itself, because just the gray area in how this has been handled hasn't really helped the situation at all, in both public perception and actuality with how things have played out and the recurrence of incidences. There hasn't been a harsh enough stance, and the NBA, the team, should definitely seek to address that in the future as well.
Well, that was well said, and I you have any more thoughts pertaining to just Ja Cast?
Rooting for you, Ja. Ja Cast.
I'm rooting for you as well, Ja Morant. I know you have a lot on your plate. I know you have a lot of things to think about. I know that the league, well, the Memphis Grizzlies organization has decided to suspend you. But whatever comes your way, whatever else is thrown your way, just know that you can get through it. And for the fans like myself and Chris, you know, just to continue to support him. He's carrying a huge mantle, and the things that he's able to, that he will be able to accomplish, and the things that he has accomplished and proven to us already, you know, it just shows that more is yet to come. Mm-hmm. So I wish him, as Stephen A. says, I wish the brother much success. So yeah, if you didn't take anything else from this podcast, just know that, you know, although we have all these things to talk about and say, and, you know, at the end of the day, Ja Morant is human. We shouldn't look at these guys as heroes, although we do.
Or at least we shouldn't view them as, you know, they can be heroes, they can inspire us, but we shouldn't hold them to an unrealistic standard. And again, you know, there's so much at play, so many factors, so many people to be held accountable, that, you know, we need to be gracious in how we view the situation. Yeah, exactly.
So that's all I have, Chris. Any last thoughts, final word?
Mm-hmm. Have a tough day.
Mm. And I didn't say it the way he wanted me to say it, so I'll say it. Have a tough day, Tevers.
So disgusting. Why do we do this?
Yeah, have a tough day, Tevers. And that might, probably change that.
Yeah.
Tevs.
Yeah, look in the near future for some names being thrown out there for our audience, for our fan base.
Yeah, drop it in the comment section or something. Mm-hmm. We'll figure it out. But signing off.